Hi everyone, Evette Rose here, and welcome to Reset Your Life Summit here with me. And guys, I'm so excited to have an amazing guest speaker here with me today. Today we have Will Polston. Will, thank you so much for being here.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you.
Me too. And so guys, I'm sure most of you here also know Will, but he's also one of the UK's leading business strategists and also performance coaches. He's also a member of the International Coach Federation. And in the last 5 years, he's worked with more than 2,000 business owners and also entrepreneurs, clocking up more than 3,500 hours. Goodness, that's a lot, Will. One-on-one coaching hours. And he's also a very well-respected keynote speaker. He's also a Huffington Post author and a TEDx speaker. He's a company owner of Make It Happen. And in 2016, he was also a finalist for the Coach of the Year at the Association of Professional Coaches, Trainers and Consultant Awards. And last but not least, he even has an airplane pilot license. Well, I'm always seeing you flying around on Facebook. It's amazing. Thank you so much for being here. I know you're a busy man, so I'm really honored that you put this time aside for us. Thank you so much.
It's an absolute pleasure. I'm really looking forward to it, and yeah, what a phenomenal summit you put together. So it's a privilege to be a part of it.
Thank you so much. So, Will, with the way that life has changed, I'm sure your business structure has changed. Mine absolutely has changed. And also being a coach such as yourself, being a speaker, everything has gone online. And the way that we approach business, the way that we approach life, I mean, even our relationships, even our relationship with ourselves have changed so drastically. And I've seen that we had to really come up with new, innovative ways that even surprises me to this day, where I'm thinking, wow, look at the creativity of what people are coming up with when there's a problem. But as you know, COVID has been going on for so long and lockdown has been going on for so long that we kind of get stuck in coping strategies. We kind of get stuck in a state of patterns and cycles. And one thing that I've noticed here, because there's so much fear around, the conspiracy, around the stress that's been going on, just the absolute loss of income for some people, and just, people just feeling a sense of loss, that we've lost our ability to be and feel clear in our lives. We lost not really lost, it's just more suppressed because of stress. When we're all stressed, we can't really think straight. And we've been all in a state of distress for such a long period of time. And one thing that you said that struck me really, that was very true for me, that I kind of was like, yeah, I kind of lost a bit of touch with that during this time of lockdown and now coming out of that. And that's clarity. That is about being clear once again about where it is that we want to move to and go to in our lives, because everything has been about survival. But now we're slowly starting to click back into a normal sense of civilization, well, at least to a certain degree. And what, in your opinion, in terms of, would you say that clarity is important and why we need to reconnect back to that in today's time?
What an incredible question to start with. So one of the things that I've done of it for many, many years, like yourself, is I've studied lots of different modalities, everything from neurolinguistic programming to stoicism to quantum physics and metaphysics and lots and lots and lots of different modalities. And one of the things that I always try to do is simplify everything down the best way I can. And in my experience, what I've found is that it always starts with clarity. It always starts with clarity. That's clarity of thinking, clarity of direction. And whilst the goal may, if you get clear on your ultimate goal, the actual route to get there may change. And that, I mean, a prime example over the last couple of years, I'm a big believer, if you set your goals in stone and your methods in sand, then you'll live a much more harmonious life. And right. I think it really, really is key. So for me, when we break it down, for me, clarity creates certainty. Certainty creates confidence. Now, a lot of people, they've said they felt fearful, they've not felt confident, they're uncertain of what the terrain's going to look like. And in my opinion, a lot of the time, that's because they haven't got clarity. Now, that might be short-term clarity. If you imagine a snow globe, for example, you take a snow globe and you shake up that snow globe for a period of time, then you can't see anything because there's snow floating around. And it's no different. What we have to do is we have to look at how can we create that short-term clarity for ourselves, which might mean a tactical change of direction to then be able to be able to move forward and progress. Yeah, I think it's hugely important. Hugely important.
Yeah. Because one thing that I love that I know about you as well is that from a very young age, like I really want to kind of like dissect your brain because you're so brilliant at what you do. It's almost like what I'm seeing is a very positive pattern for you. It's like whatever you do, whatever you set your mind to, it succeeds. You seem to just do really well at whatever it is that you want to do. And something that really struck me also is that you already had this sense of just needing to have clarity about something before you actually take action. Because from a young age, you know, there was a part of you that had a sense of clarity of knowing I want to be successful. Not necessarily pinpointing exactly what it is, but just feeling that feeling of the wish fulfilled of being successful. And what you did was I can only imagine is that you felt that feeling and you're thinking, how do I gain more clarity in relationship to this feeling of success? How do I achieve that? And I can almost see you as this little kid looking around at other successful people and then thinking, what are their mindsets like? How do they create success? What do they do to get to where they need to be? And what can I copy of that? You know, this is kind of like, you know, from an early age, you just knew that. And what I would love to hear from you is what can you say to someone who is feeling a little bit like, I know I need clarity, but I'm so stuck in a state of distress. Is there something that you can share with them that you went through yourself when you were a child, like tips and techniques, perspectives and approaches that you had to really dive into this, you know, feeling the feeling of the wish fulfilled and then going for it, but finding the steps and breaking it down in terms of how do I get to the feeling that I have and then applying the knowledge to get me to that place, that end destination?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's so funny you picked up on that. So I suppose where I, like so many people, their journey, the catalyst for it is a form of pain of some sort. You know, when you go back to childhood, in a lot of instances, that's the case. Now, what was quite unique for me was that growing up, I had a belief that money equaled happiness. So I went off on a tangent to make as much money as I could, as early as I could. And the reason for that was I've got two very wealthy uncles. One of my uncles is a billionaire. The other one's a multi-millionaire. And one of the things I always remember growing up was my dad saying they just got lucky. So that was his excuse. They just got lucky. They just got lucky. Anyway, long story short, one day I came home from school. I was about 11 years old. My dad had quit his job to set up a business, one of my uncles, that never ended up doing anything, never ended up getting started. My dad had already left his job. He ended up falling into a depression. And all the stereotypical stuff, slept in separate rooms with my mum, curtains shut all day, didn't leave the house, all the usual stuff. Now, at 11 years old, I started to connect the dots. I'm like, well, Uncle Mark, he's a billionaire. He's really happy. There's Uncle Steve. He's a multi-millionaire. He's really happy. There's Dad when he worked in London, right? He's stressed and frustrated, but he's a lot happier than he is now. Well, for me, it's obvious money equals happiness. So that was my first experience of modeling other people, connecting the dots and saying, well, and just basically creating an assumption and going off on a trajectory. And that was the very first experience that I had of setting my mind to things. And what I had heard growing up was about my uncle, who's gone on to do very, very well. He literally started selling T-shirts on Venice Beach and then went on and on and on and on. So he's got really quite an entrepreneurial story. And that was one of my big inspirations. So it very much was having those people around me as inspiration that took me off on the tangent. Now, fast forward sort of 12 plus years later, then I had my big realization and realized it was nothing to do with money. It was never to do with money. It was also to do with my dad, how my dad hadn't achieved certain things he was capable of and the impact that had on me. And that's kind of led me to doing the work that I do now. But having that role model around me was definitely something that influenced me for sure. And in relation to your question around, well, how else can people surround themselves with people? One of the best things that you can do is surround yourself with people. If you haven't got people that are in your immediate family or even people in your local area, then there's these wonderful resources called books, you know, where you get to you can spend learn so much from someone by reading their autobiography, by listening to them on podcasts, watching them on YouTube. You can surround yourself with these people and be influenced in that respect to start to learn how they think, because that is exactly what I've become obsessed with, is not only do what people do in terms of their actions, but what is it that's going on between their ears that means they take the actions that they do, that means they make the decisions that they do. And that for me has become part of my lifelong quest of learning from people that influence me, that I admire and trust. And I look to learn the process of thinking that they have, so that I can just apply that little bit to me, and I can adopt some of that way of thinking that just enables me to become a better version of me, and then obviously share that with my clients too.
I love that. That's actually really, really insightful. So, and how did you do that? Like, I know for me, sometimes when I was thinking of like reading a book and, you know, trying to look at someone who is successful and taking the traits that some people have, what I see sometimes a lot of people do is they will try to copy someone who they deeply admire, but sometimes it's traits that they cannot identify really with. They can't really relate to it. So it's almost like they try to box them into trying to becoming someone that they're not. But what I'm hearing from you is that you actually went with the traits that felt good to you, the ones that made you feel powerful, the ones that made you feel stronger, that you felt, I can actually run with this concept. I can run with this type of mindset. I can run with this type of approach.
Yeah, I think sort of as years have gone on, I've understood it a little bit more. And there's a number of universal laws, and one of the universal laws is the universal law of reflection and transparency. So whatever we see in other people, we see in ourselves, right? So what I'm aware of now is that if I'm looking at someone that I admire, so I don't know, I admire whoever the person might be. What it actually is there's certain traits and characteristics of that person that I'm being too humble to acknowledge in myself that are in them. So there's a process that we can work through to realize that, but it acts as a really powerful awareness tool to look at that person and go, wow, yeah, and when you do this process and you realize these things, then what it does is it brings you up to an even playing field. Now, it may be different quantitatively and qualitatively, but in every instance that I've ever done this, when people do it, profound things happen, because no longer are they, because but by just the default, if you're putting someone on a pedestal, you're putting yourself below them. So for as long as you stay below them, then you're going to keep yourself in that space. Whereas when you see yourselves as equal and actually see some of their drawbacks, because everybody's got drawbacks, right? There's no one-sidedness. We see their drawbacks. We see their maybe negative traits that we've been blind to in the past because we've been infatuated with them. Then we can bring ourselves to an even playing field. And it's a really humbling process to do. Now, what's also really interesting is the opposite works as well. So if there's someone that you don't like and there's someone that you're judging, then you can do the same process, which can also be equally powerful.
Wow, that was actually powerful. I never actually thought about that, because now I also understand why you said that you deeply, you know, felt that moment when Tony Robbins also talked about when he was, you know, in his low moments, and there was a part of you that almost like, I think there was something that you said there that struck me quite, it was quite an emotional tone there for me, in the sense of relating deeply to that point in time where he was in that life. What was it that was so significant for you?
Yeah, so what I refer to as my lightning moment was, I was at a Tony Robbins event, UPW 2013, and when he was sharing the Thanksgiving story. And if you're not familiar with the Tony Robbins Thanksgiving story, go and check it out on YouTube. You can watch the full video. It's about 15 minutes long, but the short version of it is that, so this spoiler alert, I'm going to share it, is that he one Thanksgiving, he was at home, he was a child, and a stranger knocked at the door with a Thanksgiving dinner because his dad couldn't afford to give them Thanksgiving dinner. And when they opened the door, Tony opened the door, and he said, look, I've got some Thanksgiving dinner for you here. We understand that you haven't got dinner, and this is from a stranger. So he ran and grabbed his dad, and his dad come to the door, and his dad tried to slam the door in the stranger's face, said, we don't accept charity. And then from memory, what then happened was his dad left, and it must have been from embarrassment or whatever else, he decided to leave. And that was a pivotal moment in Tony's life. Now, what I heard when that happened was my dad. So it was like a form of metaphor for me, if you like, because what I heard was my dad always said they just got lucky. So that excuse of we don't accept charity for my dad was they just got lucky. So what my dad always said about my uncles was they just got lucky. They just got lucky. That was his excuse for not being able to have the life that he would have maybe liked to have had. And it was in that moment, that exact moment, that I was like, wow, Tony, that was part of the reason, one of the catalysts that Tony's gone on to do what he's done. It was the origin story of Basket Brigade, which has literally fed millions of people around the world. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, if that moment was so similar to my moment and Tony going and having the impact that he's having on the world because of that, then I could look at doing something similar. So it was such a profound experience 9 years ago, whatever it was. And from that moment on, life has never been the same. It completely altered the trajectory of my life. That 15-minute story, having that moment, crying my eyes out for about 15 minutes, that then sent me off on that different trajectory.
Yeah, because I really felt that, even though it was typed, like I really felt that emotion in that explanation that you added there. And I really wanted to go a bit into that. That's really powerful. And so another part also here that I wanted to talk to you about, also kind of like how you were leading up to, how you related to Tony in that way, and, the incident with dad. So you progressed and you continued, to study other people, to follow your path. But at the age of 23, that is when you actually identified your ultimate goal in life, and that you wanted to help as many people as possible by getting them to really unlock their full potential and how to help them to make it happen. What was that moment like for you? Because so many of us have lost our feeling and connectedness to what is our purpose, what is our ultimate goal. And almost like I feel like we need to backtrack a little bit and connect back to our emotions, connect back to the mental awareness, mindfully, live more mindfully, to recognize, wow, this is it. And it's not just a fleeting fantasy, but this can actually become my reality. What is it in that moment that really grabbed your attention and made you realize this is it?
So it comes back to that word that we started talking about, which was clarity. So in that moment, I've only had two of them really that have been that powerful. It was like, the best way I can describe it was like, in movies when the clouds part and the sun sort of beams down on people. Right. It was like that on steroids. And it was this moment of clarity where just it was almost like the dots joined up. I could see perfectly clear moving forward. Everything was crystal clear. And I call it inspired thought, because that inspired thought released a rush of energy that, like I said, I've only experienced that on a handful of times in my whole life. So that was where I kind of just knew this isn't just a normal fleeting idea. This is it's a thought that's charged with so much energy. I just need to act on it. And it was a knowing. That's the only way I can describe it. It was a knowing. And in over years, I've become, I suppose, more skillful at helping people create these moments. And it's when when the alignment comes in to play, and people via appropriate question, I call it strategic intervention, which is just a couple of fancy words for questions that get people thinking in a particular way, then all of a sudden they have these realizations, and the unconscious becomes conscious, and people can move forward in that way. So yeah,
I love that, because that ultimately is also about leading into how intelligent action leads to fulfillment. Because when
Yeah.
you have this urge, when you have what I would call like this push, right? You felt that jolt of energy and this excitement, like your body was bracing itself to take action, and you had that clarity. But then it also requires to have, clarity in sense of the next steps, the goals it is that you're going to take within that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of use the term intelligent action because so many people have become obsessed with taking massive action, like let's take massive action. Let's just make sure we're taking massive action. But for me, you can put loads of hard work in, you can take loads of action, but if it's action that's going in the wrong direction, and what I mean wrong meaning is that the thing that doesn't inspire you most, then it's going to feel difficult, and ultimately it's not going to get you closer to where you ultimately want to be. So for me, intelligent action is action that's aligned with your values and your goals. If it's action that's aligned with your values and your goals, great, let's take it, let's move forward. It's going to feel easier. I'm not going to say it's always going to be easy, but it's going to feel easier. It'll feel like things will just happen. When you have those moments and you're like, wow, how is that? It just almost feels too good to be true. It's a moment of, some people might call it a coincidence. I don't believe in coincidences. I believe in synchronicity, sort of everything's happening, but these moments that just feel aligned, and yeah, that's really where the intelligent action piece comes in.
I love that. And that alignment also, I mean, we've all been there, and we can probably all relate to this, that it's one thing to feel alignment, but it's also another step or another process within to feel worthy of accepting and receiving and inviting that alignment into our lives. Because so many of us have felt the desire or the need to take action. We feel clear, we have clarity about what we need to do. And sometimes even the support's there. I've seen people where support is thrown at them, and they are an absolute, like a deer in headlights, like they freeze. It's like they can't embody it, they can't take action on that. And it's almost like sometimes missed opportunities come in. And I mean, call it maybe divine timing, maybe there wasn't the right time, but maybe it could also be where there's a block in terms of us finding our self-worth to really step into that. Has that been something that's also been a challenge for you, to really just receive what you see that's being just set out in front of you?
Absolutely. I think so. When we talk about manifestation, if you were to take the manifestation formula, if you like, there's going to be having a vision, there's going to be knowing your purpose, there's going to be writing goals, doing affirmations, you're going to be feeling grateful, you're going to have all these different things. But the final hurdle that most people fall down on is deserve level. So they can have the vision, they can do the affirmations, they can write goals, they can be taking action, they can be feeling grateful, they can be doing all of these things. But if they don't feel worthy and deserving, then they will fall down on that hurdle. And that for me, in more instances than not, comes down to guilt and shame. So it's people having deep feelings of guilt, which my perception of guilt is when you perceive that you're causing more negative than positive to someone else, and shame is when you perceive that you're causing more negative than positive to yourself. And what's quite interesting is that chronic lack of deserve level generally will manifest itself long term in lack of finances, because it's the easiest thing where people have it, and even if they get lots of money, if they don't feel deserving of it, they give it all away. They give it all away, they spend it all, they find themselves in situations where it's gone. So a indication of deserve level will be people's financial situation. They're chronic, so over a long period of time, not necessarily in a moment in time, but that's an indication. And it's extremely powerful when you start working on deserve. I've got a number of affirmations that I read out to myself daily. One of those is I'm worthy and deserving of love. It's one of those is I'm worthy and deserving of love, money, and success, because that deserve level, every day affirming that to myself over and over and over again, is one of the ways that helps me move forward and be able to work towards in improving that.
That's powerful. I love that. I love powerful affirmations. It's something that's also a part of my life. And I find also sometimes the affirmations changes based on my business and, you know, depending on where I'm at in my career and also my personal life. But there's always a fundamental core values and positive affirmations that I also keep coming back to. And so much of it has to do with self-worth, because sometimes what we also do is, and I'm sure many people here who's watching can also relate, that we compare ourselves to other people. We see someone else's success. And, you know, your dad also stepped into that trap a little bit where, you know, he would compare himself maybe, you know, to your uncles and thinking, you know, that's just luck, but saying that because maybe he didn't feel worthy or deserving of achieving or aspiring to that. And then sometimes we just self-sabotage that with negative thinking. And it's quite interesting because, you know, when you talked about your dad like that, I really saw my dad in the exact same pattern. You know, he just did not have the capacity to be happy for someone else. Anyone who was remotely successful, he would break that person down. And of course, it was, you know, just his reflection of him feeling absolutely awkward and inadequate of, you know, seeing someone being in such a state of success, and that person's state and energy almost pulls you into that potential. But if you can't receive that potential, of course, it's going to make you feel awkward and inadequate. And the first thing that we do when we are in that state is to attack and to sabotage and to feel feelings of unworthiness. And then we subconsciously, we reject it, or we push it away, or we ruin it. We ruin the opportunities that we have with that. And this is something where I actually found myself as I was maturing and growing into my career, as well as you know, trying to relate to these people around me that was successful. And what I wanted to ask you also here is, what are reasons in that case, you know, why people might not be taking action, you know, that they know they want to be or that they should be taking?
So that's really interesting. So I'm going to pick up the word "should" there. But before I do it, I want to take one step back. You mentioned luck again, right? And this for me kind of comes back to that deserve level piece again, because if people say, well, they just got lucky, what they're doing is that they're making an assumption that it's something that's outside of themselves. Now, I've said for years I don't believe in luck, right? Luck for me is when preparation meets opportunity. But what I read a book earlier this year by Gay Hendricks, one of his new books called Conscious Luck, and it's a phenomenal book. But again, I'm going to spoil the sort of the underpin in it for a lot of people.
Didn't you interview?
Definitely go and check it out. Yeah, he's come and spoken at our events, and we've done a podcast interview. And wonderful man, and incredibly wise. And one of the things that the thing that I took from it is, it's not whether you believe in luck or not. It's whether you believe that you're lucky. Because if you believe that you're lucky, which in my opinion is a form of increasing your deserve level, that's why I wanted to bring this up, is because if you believe, well, I'm lucky, what you're really saying to the universe is good stuff can happen to me.
Yeah.
And it's that belief, in my opinion, that is the component, the important component. It's a bit like our reticular activating system. Our reticular activating system is the part of our brain that enables us to focus. It's constantly on the lookout for opportunities. And if we believe that we're lucky and we believe in luck, then all of a sudden these opportunities can happen. We open ourselves up to these. Now, like I say, I don't believe in luck per se, but I believe in the concept of being open to opportunities and being worthy to receiving, because I'm also a huge believer, as I know you are, Evette, of putting great stuff out. You know, the law of reciprocity, just constantly every day pouring out, knowing in some way, somehow it's going to come back tenfold in the long run. And that if I can focus every day on doing the right thing, not always the easy thing, but the right thing in the moment, then it's going to come back eventually. And that's the beauty of these situations. But sorry, I sort of deviated slightly from your question, so you'll have to remind me.
No, it's just where you're actually going is perfect. We can get back to what I was actually wanted to ask, because I love where you were actually moving towards with this, because you said that this will come back to you. Now, this also brings up another great topic, but we'll come full circle again. Guys, hang in with us. This is 1 minute, because this is actually really great where it's going to. It's trust. Oh my God. Now, you know, trust is really hard, especially after everything that we've been going through, and having to trust our intuition and having to trust so many things after so many conflicting things have been taking place in our environment. What did you do to really strengthen that sense of trust in your core so that you can feel confident with what you're doing?
What an incredible question.
You're so good with what you do, Will. Like, I want to dissect you. We need to clone you.
So there's one key fundamental that if people embody this one belief, it's like a core belief that I believe that there's certain core beliefs that I believe that people are wise to have. And this is one of them. Life happens for you, not to you. Because if you can have 100% faith that in any given moment, no matter how it feels, life is happening for you, not to you, then it's a beautiful world. Yeah. And in that moment, if you have that as an underpinning core belief, global belief, an overarching belief of everything else that you do, then in any given moment, you can then say, well, what's the lesson or the blessing here? And then in any given moment, in anything in life, there is a lesson or a blessing, no matter what's going on. So that for me is one of the keys, is adopting that belief. Now, for years, I didn't have that belief. And it was when I made that shift, all of a sudden, it was like things just clicked and I could be more at peace and I could be more at harmony. Whereas before I resisted. So what it actually did is it made the transition, because we talk about all the time, you've got an option to choose fear or to choose faith. And if you have that as an overarching belief, is that life happens for you, not to you, then it makes it so much easier to choose faith. Yeah. And then you can move with that and you can roll with that. So yeah, that's one of the keys. That makes that whole way of thinking so much easier.
It's such a powerful statement that you made when you said, that life is not happening to you, it's happening for you. Because even just in the moment you said that, and I repeated that silently to myself, I could actually feel my body just going into the flow of my immediate environment. And I'm like, because I have been a bit stressed with things that's going on lately, but it's good stress. Sometimes we have like really negative stress because you dread what you're doing, but then you have stress because you're just so excited, you're so passionate. And sometimes it weighs you a little bit down at the same time because of, time management, which is one other thing which I'm going to be asking you about soon, because I know you're really good with that, is that you start to resist even the good things because you're so stressed. But the moment you said that life is happening for you, and that feeling of flow just eased through me, and I'm like, okay, so life is happening for me. Where's the opportunity in how life is happening for me right now? And I kind of and I did this just right now here live on the spot as we were doing it, because just based on everything that you're saying, and I'm starting to slowly put it together. I feel like I'm a student right now. It's great. And I love that. I love that, just those two simple statements. It's just to really bring out the positive in what is happening right now. What is the opportunity? Because if you're constantly going to be seeing problems, but you said with the RAS, and that's what I teach myself as well. So we're so in alignment with that. I fully agree. If you all that you see is a problem, then that is exactly what you're going to be filtering in more of. So it's about, instead of looking at what's going wrong all the time, let's look at what is going right.
Absolutely, right? Yeah.
Just shift your focus to that immediately first, and get into a positive state first. Even if there's one thing that you can mention, perfect. At least now you're at a much better place in space than what you were 1 second ago. And that's a great place to slowly start to move forward.
Absolutely. The Chinese have two brushstrokes for the word crisis. One means danger and the other means opportunity. And when we take that perspective and we go, right, well, let's look for the opportunity. Rather than look at the danger, let's look at the opportunity that's presented to us. And coming back, and this kind of comes back to gratitude, right? So in any given moment, no matter what's going on, we will have things to be grateful for. And people go, Will, there's nothing I can be grateful for. My world is terrible right now. Well, we can always come back to basics. So I have 5 areas that I encourage people to look into each day. So literally, my little black journal here. Most days I write out a minimum of 10 things I'm grateful for when I start my day, because what it does is it gets me to focus on the positive and start looking for the positive in the negative and the highlights and the lowlights in any given moment. But the real key here is finding the blessings in the things that we don't think have gone as well. because when we can shift that and we can get really good at finding the positives in the negatives, not just going, well, I'm grateful because everything's amazing in my life, because when that is happening, that's wonderful. But we also find ourselves in situations where more often than not, maybe everything isn't perfect. So we then have to be able to look for that. So I encourage people to look in who are the people in their life, what are the experiences they've had, what are the belongings they've got, what are their expectations, and what are their privileges, because we've all had situations where the simple thing that we thought would happen doesn't happen. It becomes a real inconvenience. Like, for example, you get home to realize that you left the keys indoors, so you're locked out, or you the toilet doesn't flush, or you go to turn the lights on and the electricity's gone, or whatever it is. But there's so many things that are happening in our life every day that we're taking for granted. And when we can get really grateful for all of those small tiny things that are going well, like today, I'm grateful for the fact I opened up my laptop and the internet just worked. You know, this would have made this whole situation so much more difficult if it hadn't. It would have been so much more difficult if, I don't know, my the electricity wasn't working in the building, or whatever it would have been. So we can start to get grateful for those things, and we can operate from that place. So yeah, powerful.
I love that. That's I'm going to be adding that in flashcards here in this interview, because that was absolutely wonderful. So I really want people to take that away, because that is the fundamental parts where you always will find something in, absolutely, without fail. That's very powerful. Thank you for sharing that. So just to bring the last part that we will bring full circle, where I asked you a few reasons why we're not taking the action that we know that we should be taking, because ultimately, even though we do get stuck with, you know, seeing life in a certain way, and then we change our perspective of, okay, well, life is now not happening to me, it's happening for me, and we feel like we're doing everything right, but there's still in that moment where we should have done something. Maybe we need to take an action, and we know we should be doing it, but we're not. Like, what advice can you give there? Because I get stuck in this all the time. Like, this is me.
Yeah. So there's two things, and I'm going to go a bit deeper on this and go granular on it. So in my oversimplistic mind, the reason that people don't take action is because of one or two things. It's lack of clarity or lack of accountability. Right. In its most simple form, it's one of those two reasons. But then we can break that down a layer deeper. Yeah. So when people use language for me as a coach, when I'm listening to my clients, I'm listening to their body language, the words they're saying, the tonality, everything. But there's a few key indicators. And one of them, like I say, is the language they're using. When you're using the word should, that's an indication, or anyone's using the word should, it's an indication that you may not be living to your values. So using language like I have to, I ought to, I should, I need to, is an indication that you may be living to somebody else's values. And when I say somebody else's values, that could be parents, society, old school teachers, friends, you name it. So that's something that I test. So when people say to me, oh, well, I should be doing this, then the question I will ask them is, according to who? And it stumps them a lot of the time. They go, well, according to my friends, everybody says that I should be doing it. So, right, okay, so that's what they think. But what do you think you ought to be doing? You go, well, what I would really want to be doing is X, Y, and Z. And it's quite often it's something different. So when people are living someone else's values, they'll be using language like I have to, I should, I ought to, I need to, and they'll constantly require external motivation. When we're living our own values, and this is why I talk about intelligent action, what's actions align with your values and your goals, then you'll use language like I love to, I choose to, I desire to. And there's a different energy that comes with that. Now, when you're living your values, you don't require motivation because you're in inspiration. So motivation is external coming in, inspiration is internal coming out. Now let's take the word inspiration. Inspiration, in spirit. What's another word for spirit? Energy. So we're in energy. It's when we feel most energized. So all of a sudden the action taking becomes easy and effortless. Now, there's a few ways of doing that. And one of the ways of doing that is when we're clear on our values. So I break values down into two different ways. I talk about end values, which are, you've got end away values, things we're moving away from, and end towards values, things that we're moving towards. And then I talk about means values. So these are things that we actually do that give us energy. And when we see, come back to clarity, when we can see that the action that we're taking is going to get us closer to the thing that we desire most. So I talk a lot about having a North Star. I'm a big believer in having a goal that's so big that you never achieve it within your lifetime. And that in itself, when you're connected with that, when you're truly connected with that it's like a renewable energy source that you can keep striving towards. And what you can do in that instance is that you can link how the action will serve you long term, and you can do what I call a benefit stack. So we keep stacking it up. We stack up, we find all of the benefits to that particular action. So then we're drawn into doing it rather than having resistance to it.
That's fantastic. And with all these things that you do and that you want to achieve, and all this amazing things that you have done yourself, because you basically practice what you preach, and you just do everything. Like, I don't even know how to ask the question. Like, there's so much that you do that we all get overwhelmed when we want to set our mind to a goal. We have the clarity now. Our values are starting to get in alignment. We feel good about it, and we start to slowly move towards taking action. To start to create what it is that we want. But time is always a problem. I kid you not. Last week, I would be walking into my house, and even sometimes the neighbors like, "Hi, Evette, how you doing?" And I'm like, "I don't have time." Like, I didn't even listen to the fact that they just said hi. All that I'm hearing is someone is going to take time away from me and I don't have it. And it's just like, wait, what advice can you give us? Especially probably for me, I'm a bit selfish here, but how do you manage your time? Because one thing that struck me is that you actually said once, and I heard you say that, is that time management does not exist. So how now you really have to explain to me, like.
Yeah, for sure. So in answer to your question, of course, many of the people that I've studied over the years, one of the people that I come across was a guy called Eric Potterat. Now, Eric Potterat was a psychologist that specialized in working with Navy SEALs, and Navy SEALs are one of the sort of elite special forces on the planet. And there was 4 things that he identified that these Navy SEALs did that were successful in getting through Hell Week. So if you're not familiar with Hell Week, it's a process that sort of aspiring Navy SEALs have to go through to be able to be sort of qualified, if you like, as Navy SEAls. And it's a very, very rigorous process. But he found there was 4 qualities that they had. One of them was what he called closed focused goal setting. So you can imagine you're a Navy SEAL, you've got a mission. Now that mission could be going on for hours, days, weeks, whatever it might be. But one of the qualities that he found was that they had the ability to effectively put the blinkers on and focus on the very next task at hand. So one of the things that I've become quite good at, using the process that I use of clarity, is I get people to get clear on their North Star. Then we reverse engineer the process: 10-year, 5-year, 3-year, 1-year, 90-day, 30-day, monthly goals, weekly goals. What are we doing today? And I use a process linking what I call a default diary and a must-do list that gives us really clear, focused direction on what has to happen. So we as human beings have a limited amount of bandwidth, as I call it, a little bit like your RAM on your computer. When you've got lots of apps open and tabs open, if you're anything like I have like 30 tabs open on my Chrome browser, it uses a lot of RAM memory on your computer. And we do the same in our brain. So one of the things that I'm huge on is getting people to get out of their head and write everything down. And there's a structured process that I use with people to get them really, really clear to make sure they do what they do. Now, to come back to the point that you made about time management, I don't believe in time management. Time management is a fast. We cannot manage time. Every single one of us have the same amount of minutes in an hour, hours in a day, days in a week, and so on. So what it's really about is priority management. So what we have to become really good at is priority management. Well, how can we become good at priority management? We have to then know what our highest priorities are. If we know what our highest priorities are, then we can look at identifying effectively and make decisions like, what is it that I really need to do and what is that I need to delegate. One of my mantras that I get my clients tattooed into their brain is, it needs to be done, but I don't need to do it. And we're all guilty. We're all guilty of, well, I need to do it. I can do it better. I can do it better. Well, the problem is when you try to be good at everything, it means that you can't be excellent at certain things. So it's a case, well, who can I get to do this that's better than me, and mean that I can do the things that I'm excellent at and do the things that I absolutely love doing, and other people can take on those tasks that they love doing for me.
That's so true. And, you know, one thing that you said there that I'm sure people, and especially me, was also a problem, and I know you probably had this as well, it's control issues. You know, delegating, now I'm great at delegating. I'm really, really great at it. And I had to learn the past week to really learn to delegate and just let go. You know, it was my control issues. But did you also find yourself in that position where you knew you had to delegate, and there was a part of it just like, you know, you just can't give the project over, like.
And there's two parts for this. So first of all, what I've realized now from of years of messing it up is that it's not just about delegating, it's about delegating. Well, what the hell is delegating? Delegating to great people. The difference between delegating to a great person, a person that's got the skills, got the ability, got the drive to do it, the difference that will make to your life. Because a lot of people go, yeah, but I've delegated before and it was more hassle and it was worth, they wasn't as good as me, they wasn't this. Well, if we come back to taking 100% responsibility, so in any given moment, if we choose to take 100% responsibility, go, well, what's my part to play here? Did I not choose the right person? Did I not choose the person with the right experience? Did I choose the person with the right experience, but they didn't have the right attitude? Did I, have I not committed to training them to the effective standard? Have I not communicated how I really want things done? Happiness is equal to or greater than our expectations. If our expectations are met, we're happy. If our expectations are not met, then we're unhappy. Well, how clearly have I communicated the expectations of the outcomes that I want and the competencies of the person? And when we come back and we ask ourselves those questions, oh, actually, yeah, no, I did tell them what I wanted, but I'm moaning because they didn't get it to me on Thursday afternoon. But did I tell them I wanted them on Thursday afternoon, or did I just assume that they're a mind reader? And when we start asking those questions of ourselves, once we've done that quite a few times, then we know in the future what we need to communicate to get the outcome that we want. So it is definitely something that can make a huge difference. And also the other thing is as well, is that a lot of people, they look at things binary. So they go, right, well, there's me doing it all or someone else doing it all. They forget that there's a spectrum, you know, like when you used to have the sliders in your car that went from hot to cold, you know, you don't really have them so much anymore, but it's well, yeah, once upon a time. But you imagine that sliding scale. Well, it's a little bit like if you were training a dog to be off the lead, you take the dog out for a walk first of all when it's a little puppy and it's going to be on the lead, and then eventually you might get to a safe space where you let the dog off for a little bit, and then you bring it back, you put it on the lead, and then you let it off the lead a little bit longer, and then you might be going for a walk one day and you decide to give it a slightly longer lead and a longer lead and a longer lead. You go, actually, well, no, I'm willing to take the dog off the lead for a little bit longer. So it's that process of training that person and not having the expectation that it's going to go from you doing it exactly how you want to do it to them taking over and doing it perfectly. Because again, then we're creating a fantasy for ourselves where we're likely to feel let down if that doesn't happen.
Absolutely. So it's not just about taking it and then just going boom and then expecting things to just magically happen. You also have to be a bit involved in terms of how you would like it to happen, you know, not assuming people can read your mind, because most of the time people cannot. You know, we think that we're mind readers by thinking if someone acts or reacts a certain way, then we think, oh, they must be thinking this or that. And 99% of the time we're actually wrong, but we kind of like base our whole reality on that assumption. And, you know, this is exactly also where we make an assumption, assuming that people might know certain things, and then we end up setting ourselves for disappointment. It's almost like a subconscious self-fulfilling prophecy if we don't invest in that as well. And delegating is not just a one-way street, but there's a certain steps, as you said, that also needs to be taken when you do delegate. So it's delegating with discernment.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, this was amazing, golden nugget moments, absolutely golden nugget moments. And just for anyone that's maybe stuck right now in their life where the borders are open, you know, life is kind of like coming back to a certain degree of normality, and they're just sitting there and they're like, oh my God, now what? Now what message do you have for them, just to kind of like shake them a little bit out of their state of stuckness?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the key thing is that it comes back to that comment before, is that life is happening for us, not to us, in any given moment. And when we find ourselves in a position when we're unsure, having faith that it's darkest just before dawn. So something just around the corner is about to happen, but we have the ability to create in any given moment when we get clear. So in my experience, we spoke about clarity right at the beginning, it's apt that we're talking about it at the end, is that we can create clarity for ourselves by identifying what that future looks like. People typically will feel inspired and want to take action when they have a clear vision for themselves and what their future could look like. And people say to me, well, how do I possibly know what my vision would look like? Well, by starting with, what would you absolutely love to do? In fact, there's a process that I love, I'm a huge fan of, that helps people identify what their vision might look like, which is the concept of the ikigai. Now, for people that aren't familiar with it, it's a Japanese concept. We don't have a direct translation for it in English, but it means reason for being. And what's fascinating about the ikigai is that it originated from a little island just off of Okinawa in Japan. And there's more centurions, so more people that lived over 100 years old in this particular region than anywhere else in the world, because they live by this ikigai concept. And the way that you identify what that is for you is, it's like a Venn diagram, right? So 4 circles that meet in the middle to create the ikigai in the middle. Is, what do you love? So an exercise for people to do is, what do you love? Identify all the things that you love doing. What are you really good at? What are your strengths? And you write those down. You go, well, I haven't got any strengths. Well, there's over 12,000 words in the English language that describe a strength. Trust me, you've got plenty of strengths. Then identifying what does the world need? What do you feel that there is a problem that you could solve and you could help fix? And then what could you be paid for? And when we look at that sweet spot, forget about how you're going to make money, how it's going to happen. We start to look at that and we start creating our dream life. What would our dream life, what would our ideal day look like? If we were to grab a journal, write down, if I was to open my eyes and wake up in the morning, where would I be? What would I be doing? Who would I be hanging out with? What would I be having breakfast? What would be the thing I'd be going and doing in the morning? What would my partner be like? How would we be acting? What sort of social things would we get up to? And we just start to have fun. You know, when you're a kid and you just play make-believe, just have fun, go absolutely crazy with this process. No limitations. If money was no object, if time was no object, you could do whatever you want. And what will start to happen is you get little green shoots of inspiration when you do this exercise. What I recommend people do is they get a bit of music that they absolutely love, one of their favorite bits of music, put it on repeat for 3 or 4 times and just spend 15 minutes. Don't get a pen and paper, and don't take the pen off the page, writing about all these different things. What would the dream life be like? And that will start this process of enabling them to feel energized. So yeah, hopefully that helps.
I love that. I'm actually going to do that. That you really inspired me now. Like, you know, as you talk about it and I'm thinking, I'm visualizing, I'm like, I can actually feel, you know, myself getting into that moment and just getting into the flow of it. And like, it almost like helps you to feel like, I love that statement, you feel the feeling of the wish fulfilled, because it's like, you know, you're sharing such powerful steps, in easy steps, to create that, and then to create what it is that you want from that. Beautiful. Will, thank you so much. What an absolute pleasure to have you here today. And you also have a wonderful contribution here for the summit, and that's free 30-day membership to the Evolve Network. I'm so excited. Can you tell us just briefly what can people find in there?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Evolve Network is our membership. We've got members from all over the world that want to be part of a community of positive, driven, like-minded group of ambitious people that are striving forward in their life, that have got a keen interest in personal development. We run coaching sessions with me. I run events where we have world-class experts that come and deliver phenomenal workshops every month. We have 2 guest speakers at our event. We've had, Gay Hendricks, you mentioned, we've had Marissa Peer, we've had yourself, we've had Dr. John D. Martini, we've had some phenomenal guests that come and speak at our events. There's modules of lots of different training stuff that we've spoken about today, like how to create your North Star, how to cultivate an attitude of gratitude. There's a whole master your time module of what you can do to master your time. So all of that content's in there. We hold people accountable. It's just a wonderful community to connect with like-minded people. And yeah, there's a gift for people to come and experience it for 30 days, experience it for themselves. And yeah, we'd love to have them part of it.
What a gift. Thank you so much. That was so generous. Thank you so much, Will. Thank you for your love, your time, and your energy, and everything that you do and contribute also to the world. You're an absolute light worker. Like I said, we need to clone you. We need more Wills running around. We need ambassadors of you everywhere that can move and shake, because you're absolutely a mover and a shaker. And just keep being you. And thank you for this beautiful, positive influence that you are in the world and into people's lives as well, because it's so needed. It's so needed.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's been an honor to have you part of the it's been an honor to have you part of the to be able to be part of this. And yeah, I'll look forward to speaking with you very soon, and I hope everybody's enjoyed it.
Yes. So thank you so much, everyone, also for being here. And another big thank you to Will. And guys, until next time, be the light that you are.